Okay, so let's do some hair. So like I said, this is a longish process, and if you get started early, you're all good because then you can make any changes and adjustments later on. The longest phase is actually making the hair cards, or placing the hair cards. That's just going to take the longest amount of time. It's also going to take the longest amount of finicking and adjusting and that kind of stuff. Making the actual hair cards themselves, the actual textures for them, really easy, dead simple. That's what we're going to do in this video, and then we're going to, next video, take what we make into Maya. Now the great thing about this process as well is whenever I do this kind of stuff, I never land on my perfect hair texture layout straight away. I always end up partway through my hair going like, oh, actually, you know what, I need these kind of hairs, and I come back into Fiber Shop, make any adjustments. Try not to upset the whole thing. Try not to reshuffle anything around. Just like move what I need to around as much as I can. And then when I bring it back into Maya, obviously all the textures update automatically, and I then just move the UVs around to fit whatever I've adjusted. So what I've got here is a really basic paint over of all the hair clumps. I've chosen a fairly easy hairstyle. It's got a bit of wave at the bottom. It's fairly straight up top. What we've got here is just some front fringy bang kind of thing, and then the side bits. Very easy. There's no braids, nothing like that. And this is for my own gratification. Well, I do want us to do paint overs because it's not for it's going to make your grade better, but more for it'll help you see stuff. You know, if you really look at hair, you try and find all the different sections. For the longer hair people, you will have less sections. For the shorter hair people, you probably have more sections, weirdly enough, because with the shorter hair section people, so Bill and Warner, they're both kind of similar hairstyles, but because it's shorter, it exposes more of the head and exposes more regions. So you obviously got the top here, you've got the sides, you've got the back, and then you've got any like sideburns, nape of the neck, that kind of stuff that you have to think about. For long hair, you are covering it up a lot with the long hair, obviously, and then it's more about the dynamics and the layering, that kind of stuff is what comes with longer hair. So what I've got here is just what are the short hair cards I've got to think about? Well, there's the nape of the neck and there's some fringe flyaways. And in there I'm also including, if I want to go this deep into it, where the hair parting is, maybe there's kind of like a little bit of a parting, maybe some flyaways there. Short flyaways anyway. My mids are things like obviously the front bangs, and inside the top clump I'm also including like the back of the very back of the head, around the occipital, pardon me, and the top of the head. Now why am I including the back of the head where the occipital bone is? Obviously we should know right around there. It's because when we make hair cards, when we make hair, we have got to think like a wig maker. We've got to think about how wig makers make theirs. What they do is they don't go from the top down, from what I've seen. They go from the back of the neck upwards. So they go for the lowest layer first and then build on top of it. Because if you were to build from the top downwards, all that hair can gets in the way. So what I do is I build my main clumps, build my main like coverage, and then start building in the sides and then up and stuff. You'll see what I mean. And then I've got my longs, so it's my main coverage, which is nice and simple. But then I've got my curls and my main kind of dynamicisms. And here I've just color coded very basically for myself. I've got the green, which is the less dynamic, from what I'm seeing, the less dynamic longer pieces, the less well, in the long area here it's the less dynamic longer pieces, and in the fringe it's this clump here. The reds are this clump here in the fringe, and then there's more dynamic curls in the long section. This blue, or the blues in general, are in the fringe, it's just another clump, and also in the long section it's the mid, you know, the layering, because it's not just coming from the top of the head there down, it's going to be going all the way down to the neck. Obviously it goes down in layers, it's layered. And I'm doing that, like I said, for my own gratification. It's not for I'm trying to just tick boxes. I'm doing that so I have a better idea about what I'm doing. And then what I've done is I've made a very basic kind of layout that I'm going to take in the Fiber Shop. So obviously this is my longs, this is my mids, and these are my shorts. This is my short for the actual hair itself, but down here I've also got a section where I might put in, or I will put in, eyelashes and eyebrows, and maybe any others. You know, it's kind of like a bit of a free area. but I've got my long section, my mid section, and my short section. And again, this is only sketched in, so I might actually change the general layout. Maybe the long section might get a little bit wider, my short section might get shorter. I don't know yet, so I'm just kind of using that as a guide. And I've saved this out as, or I'm going to save this out as a 2048 by 2048, because again, building inside of Photoshop, I just want to make sure that it's to the resolution that I want it to be at in the end, and I'm building this obviously using that as a guide, so I can make sure it fits within that square. Okay, so I'm going to save that out, save it to somewhere. So I'm going to save that to its own folder. Hair guide, I'll call it. There we go. And then in Photoshop, there we go. So I'll move my head for this. So the bottom left hand side here, we've got reference images. And we just go background image, browse, we find that image. Yeah, I've got some cool reference image that comes with the software as well. But I put mine on the desktop, so I'm going to go to the desktop. And I'm going to find a nice colourful image. There we go. So now that is my image. That's my guide. And I'm going to make it... There we go. So turn off overlay. There we go. So, starting off with, basically go from my longest down to my shortest, thickest to thinnest. So I'm going to go for my thickest, longest hair, which is this one. Right there. So this is my main coverage, and I'm going to make it fairly thick. I'm not going to make it just one solid block as well. I will have tips at the end of this, but I will be... making it fairly dense, that's what I'm trying to say. In fact, I will actually scale down... Control right. I will scale this down a little bit, because it's a bit big coming in. Remember, we can, when we export this, we do bake it as a certain size anyway. I'm just using that as a guide. So, you know, yeah, you don't necessarily need to use a 2048 by 2048. I did, because that's, you know, I was thinking that's what I'm going to export my thing as. Anyway, so it's just some little things there I can scale down with. Right. So, let's do some stuff. So I'm going to block one, like I said, this is going to be my main hair section, so I'm going to just get my length in there. So make sure it covers the whole thing. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Length. Bring it to the top. So obviously the top here is going to be where the root is, and it's going to go down the length. And where's my root? Root slope. I'm going to flatten that off as much as I can. There we go. So keep it nice and straight at the root. But then I'm just going to change my length randomness a little bit. Is that dense enough? No, I don't think it is. So I'm going to just change my width density a little bit. Change my thickness so I can come to thickness curve here, and it looks thick enough here, but the actual thickness of the hair itself, you know, it's just one long noodle strand at the minute. So I want it to be thicker at the top, thinner at the bottom. So I'm going to make a slight adjustment. See what the top does. Use these bezels just to control it a bit. Just like that. Okay. Let me just make this black and white so it's a bit easy to see. There we go. So that colour was kind of distracting me, so I've just turned on black and white here just to kind of help me. In fact, I'm just going to change the colour of the hair here. Normally we have some presets. I can just change it here. So I'm going to make it a a lighter colour hair. Here the colour doesn't really matter because I'm just actually making the actual hair itself, so I can just use something that I can actually see. In fact, I'm going to go wacky with it. So the tip's going to be pink, the root's going to be green. So I can see it a bit better. There we go. Nice. So you can see that's very, very straight. And I'm happy with the density. Now I'm happy with the density. Okay, so we got a fairly large chunk that I'm just going to bring the width down a tiny bit so it's not as wide. So see, already I'm kind of already breaking from my my shape a little bit. Like that. Okay, so this is very, very straight. So what I'm going to do is introduce a little bit of noise to it. Well, we've got noise, we've got curl, we've got bend. I don't want it to bend because I want this to be a very, very straight shape. Curl, again, that's going to kind of change the whole kind of shape a little bit. Noise, I'm going to use noise. I'm not going to use clump on this because I don't want to separate anything. But I'm going to use a bit of noise. And I'm just going to start to randomize this a lot. So, not that much. So less noise at the top, and we get gradually noisy near the bottom, but that's getting a bit too noisy near the bottom. You know, that's, I don't want super crazy noise. Okay. You know, for now I'm going to leave that like that. I'm going to actually going to duplicate this block and use this because this has already got some parameters that I like. So I can just right click the block, duplicate, and then I get a new one. The great thing about Photoshop that I love is if we hold control and move close to another block, it will snap to it. Somewhere you'll be able to see these little green arrows. So I'm holding control when I do that, little green circles. I'm just going to snap close together. Now we've got our nice thick, this is the thickest section of hair. Now we're going to go a little bit thinner and a little bit less dense. So I'm going to keep the noise as it is, and I'm just going to go to I'm just going to bring down the width a little bit. And now I'm going to start to change some of these. So I'm going to actually do this. Yeah, change the root to have a little bit of randomness to it, like that. I'm actually going to do the same thing for the main clump, just to be on the safe side. There we go. So this is the second. So this first one here is main coverage. That's your main base layer. This one is a second. This is your volume layer. This is what gives its actual volume. Not very, very dynamic. You can have a little bit of dynamicism, but this is going to help to cover more of the head whilst giving it a little bit more volume. Oh, wherever it says seed as well, this is part of a random thing. So if you want to change, you know, go through all the different seeds, as you call it, you can use the same parameters, but then if you click the seed, the little dice next to the seed, it'll kind of randomize it and give you a bit of randomness, which is good. So what I'm going to do is add a slight clump to this. So I'm going to add a clump. Where's our strength? So just a slight one. Like that. I might end up changing that later on. Okay. So that's that one done for now. So I'm going to then duplicate this one, hold control, move it over, thin this one out, because again this is now getting thinner. So this is where we get our nice dynamic kind of curls, them red shapes. So now what I can do is, that's again looking quite nice. I'm quite liking the density, the depth. The noise is cool. I'm just going to kind of like randomize a couple of these parameters just to give it a bit of, again, randomization. And I'm going to add a bend. Obviously, no, sorry, not a bend. I want a curl. That's what I want. But I don't want the entire thing to be curled. I just want the lower section to be curled, because obviously it's gravity pulled. Well, it's not necessarily gravity. It's straighter up here, and then it kind of curls near the bottom. So find about the length or the scale of the curve that I want. What scale random just do? No, that kind of makes it look too chaotic. Oh. Okay. Oop. Something a bit like that. Turn all the way down then. There we go. Now I know it's staring at me in the face and I can't see it for some reason. So I'm trying to master height. Anyway, I'll leave it like that for now. Let me just bring down the strength of that tiny bit. Move it above the noise. Okay, and then I'm gonna. Now this one's gonna be a lot thinner. In fact, I'm just gonna move this one over, duplicate this one again, because I want to have a couple of these little curls, and I'm gonna just randomize a bunch of the settings. Go, and bring the main scatter of that down to about 5.5. No, keep it the same length. Okay, so we get this one. I'm going to remove the curl so it's nice and straight. And for now I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, so they're my longs for now. Okay, so they're my longs. And they could be closer together. But what I want to do is make sure that if I'm moving them close together that I'm paying attention to the whole thing. So that no... because this is, especially with anything that's curly and curvy, nothing kind of intersects this curve. If I'm thinking vertically, like, so if the very outside of this curve is like going down like this, so nothing will intersect it. So I've got like a bit of other hair kind of sticking into my UV. So I'm going to try and keep them, like the really straight ones I can bring a bit closer together because I know they're not going to intersect. But then the curly ones are just going to make sure they're a bit further apart, like that. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go for mids. So I'm actually going to, again, duplicate. So my mids are going to start off, I'm not going to be really thick with my mids. I'm just going to go for my medium thickness there. Duplicate again. Move it over here. And then change the length. Now annoyingly you can't anchor the length. it scales from the middle, both up and down. I'd love if it was a scaled, if it anchored for the top and you could scale it down. That'd be, or lengthen it down. That'd be very, very useful. I'm also just gonna. Oh, where are you going? I'm also just gonna increase the segments on each one of these. The segments is basically how high the resolution that curve is. It'll impact your render time, but because we're just dealing with flat images, you can see that with no segments, there's nothing to bend. Because essentially this is driven by curves in the background. And as we increase the segments, you can see that it starts to get more and more smoother. So I'm going to increase the segments to each one of them to 100. The ones that have got any kind of shape to them, just to kind of give it some interest. Oh. There we go. And the last one. There you go. So now these are my shorts. These are going to be... I'm going to not have any curl on this one. So I'm going to delete the curl. Yep. That feels okay. Maybe a bit wider. Then bring down the depth. Increase the depth. Okay, go. Duplicate that one. Seed a couple of things. It looks different. Maybe on this one I'm going to play with the clumps, because I'm on the fringe. If we look back at the Photoshop file, on the fringe I have got what appears to be some nice little clumpy stuff going on. So I'm going to clump these up a little bit. So there's my strength. There's my strength. I'm going to clump. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Clump. And then just play with some of the settings just to so you've got spread one, a single one. We'll do another one where we're then gonna make it a bit less neater, but with more dense, no, more clumps, like that. Okay, and then I think it'd be nice. We could do like a little flyaway version here. So on the very right hand side, I'm not going to break that. So I'm going to make this. I'm not going to break the boundary of my texture. So I'm going to make this very thin. Turn off clump. There we go. Some nice little flyaways. So there we got some long, some mediums, and now we can do the shorts exactly the same way. I'm just going to duplicate off probably the main one. And again, so we're going to get our width. Sorry, not our width. Length. Down. Now these ones, I'm actually going to make them a little bit more kind of wispy and a little more kind of interesting. Because these like the small little hairs are often not long enough to be affected by gravity, so they're all really straight. A lot of them are kind of like flicky and kind of like you know, split endsy. So I'm going to just delete whatever I've got in there. The noise I'm going to leave on. Width I'm going to bring down. Actually, no, the width I'm going to increase, but then the width density I'm going to bring down. So it's still the same width, it's just less of them. Bring my randomness all the way up, and I'm going to bring a bend modifier on this one. So this is going to become little like flicky wispy things that I don't have to worry about having too much geometry on to make it bend. I could put this on a relatively low poly geometry and have it kind of like sit there and look like it flicks out. I think the length needs to come down a little bit as well. Yeah, there we go. So those are going to be perfect for like the back of the head, the back of the neck. And in fact, because they're only very small, I'm going to just move them up a little bit. I'm going to duplicate off of that and just do kind of like 2 versions of this. So double little flicks and fact. There we go. Let's try and get it. I don't need to do that. No, I don't really need to do that. I can do something like that. Okay. So using the angle there. What's happening in the background there is I'm actually rotating a 3D object round. Because these are technically 3D objects on a 2D plane. It's really cool how they do it. Like I said, I think this is built on the Unity game engine, which is really cool. So a couple of neck wispy bits there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to do some like fringy sideburny ones that I can just kind of pull down, as well as so I'm going to have another 2 here. So I'm going to have the fringy sideburny ones I can pull down, and then I'm going to have stuff that I can put in the middle of the head here. So fairly straight stuff. So no bend, or maybe a little bit of bend, like really like that. Actually no, I'm going to take bend off altogether. Maybe add a bit of curl to these instead. Then one last one below it. So this one is little, like I've been seeing them as little like sideburnsy kind of stuff, and this one is what I can put on the top of the head to kind of make the parting look a little more realistic. So I'm going to take off, make it wider. Careful, because I don't want to intersect with this too much, so I'm going to move this down a little bit. But then my width density I want to bring right down. Depth density. Kind of like that, okay. Length I can decrease that. Okay. There you go, so... Oh, you've flown away. So you can see there I'm starting to get stuff in there. And obviously we've been very quick with this. What's this? Half an hour we've been doing this. And 5 minutes of that was me chatting on at the beginning. This is kind of like the sketch at the beginning. As we kind of come in, we can start to say, okay, that clump needs to have a bit more kind of change. We can come back in there and make adjustments. So that's the eyebrow stuff. Eyebrows and eyelashes. So eyelashes are really easy. I don't need to make a curve necessarily. I just need to make a strip. And then for my brows, I'm going to make 2 or 3 shapes. So for my eyelashes, I'm going to grab you. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to bring it down. Now this one, I'm actually going to what am I going to do? I'm going to take off all the stuff I've already put on it, so all the modifiers. Then I put on. And this is going to be, oops, there you go, it's going to be nice and wide with a relatively something like that. And then we'll do something like that. So this is the tear duct section, and this is the corner of the eye section, so it's going to get longer as it gets to the corner of the eye. Something like that. And I'm also going to adjust the thickness of this, because these I feel need to be a bit thicker. Nope. Bit of root randomness. There we go. Again, I can always come in and, you know, fix it up and change it later on. Okay, so that feels okay. Maybe just make that a little thinner and a little shorter, but a little denser. There we go. For now, that's cool. Yes, we are missing some bits there. That's just part of the... I'm not really too fussed about that so far. Now it's the eyebrows. So I'm going to nick... you're quite a nice starting point for the eyebrows. We're going to rotate this 180 degrees. There we go. I'm going to use what I've got here, so I'm going to use my bend. And obviously I'm looking at reference when I'm doing this as well. Go. So just messing with some of the settings just to try and get a little more of an angle on there. Oops, did it again. Duplicate you off. This one's going to be the very ends, so did it again. So I'm going to make this a little bit thinner, but I'm going to do something like that. Bring my strength down, do something like this. My length randomness, I'm going to do something like that. There we go. And I'm going to retake this one, because this is going to be, oopsie daisy, just another clump of hair. Ah, god damn it. My things are all getting mixed up. There we go. Right, so use move you there. rotate you around. I'm going to scale you down a touch. Nope, not you. B1, the control Zing in this is kind of guffed. What do we do? There we go. Okay, for now, we'll leave it like that. Oh, I missed one from there. Duplicate, move you to there. Here we go. And I'm just going to seed you a couple of times. There we go. Right. So, what's that? That took about half an hour to sketch in the initial kind of ideas for the hair. Everything looks cool. I don't think anything is intersecting with each other. If they are, I can come back in and swap that up and stuff. Not a problem. I'm going to keep the colour that I've got going on because that's going to give me a good indication of the root and tip information. So, I've just run a test bake just to make sure everything does work on that one, which it does. So, go to bake and colours. I'm not going to change any of the colours for now. Colours on our characters obviously is very simple as well, which is useful. So I'm just going to do a test bake. I'm going to choose a resolution. So I might just do this at 2K, just to bake it, just to test it. And then I'd click Bake Maps. And then this will go through all the different map making processes. Ambient occlusion takes its longest. Now you can actually come in and change some of these settings if you end up using this as a tool later on. There's tons of stuff we can change in it. It's all in kind of like inside this area, and also in some of the preferences over here. Cool. Then we can look through. So this is our ambient. This is our color. Then we got our specular. There's nothing there. This is our ambient occlusion. There is something there. Weirdly enough, it comes through better on my capture than it does on my screen. You got your alpha, which is most important, and then you've got stuff like translucency, normal, which is good, and then depth, which is also very good. Cool. Then after the baking is done, then we go to the export section. So then we go to export. So in the actual class, you're going to have a few settings that we've not got optional. But my version of Photoshop is, I need to update mine essentially. They've taken some of my tools away from me, but everything I need for this is perfect here. So at the very top we have our file destination. So I've actually given myself a file. Just put these into. So you can see I've already run the save. It has already given me stuff. I've named my thing, so I've given it a name. Oh, it's behind my head, so you can't see. Sorry about that. So all that then. So yeah, baking color. It's right there. All them settings I was changing were in design, are right there. So we're all. How much of that? Let me just check. How much of that was I covering? So I was covering all the top of it. Awesome. Anyway, we'll move on. You'll get it. So file name, prefix, other kind. I gave it a file name. Basically kept everything as it is. Allowed it to turn everything on. It's PNG. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rebake this as a JPEG because just for testing. Because Maya really doesn't like. It hates doing transparencies using PNGs. So I'm going to put it as a JPEG instead, and I'm going to rebake it, or I'm going to save it out anyway, not rebake it. I'm going to save it out as a JPEG. Advanced settings, we've not got any of that, so we're just going to use albedo, no specular, alpha, don't need height. No, we're not going to. We're going to turn off ambient occlusion. That doesn't want to turn off. Okay, they can't turn off ambient occlusion apparently. Cool. And with that, we're just going. In fact, we'll keep depth on. We'll keep it all on. We're going to export. And it's done. So that was very, very quick. So the process of that is, making all your blocks here, doing all your settings, setting up like we've got here, it's a sketch. And then as basic settings here, you just basically just choose at the bottom, or when it says, bake export settings there, you choose your resolution. We did that, I was at 2K. and then you export. So you choose a destination, which is the desktop, not a hard drive, and then we give it a name. So whatever this project's name is, I've just called it example, and then all the rest of it I'm going to leave alone. I'm just going to turn off what I don't need, turn on what I do need, and then I'm going to export. So that's what I've done, and then that gives us when I can find the file, I really should clean my desktop. There we go. So we've got the fiber cards, which is actually not something we need to worry about, because that's the wrong folder. Textures, that's what it was. Okay, so here's our textures. Now I've got doubled up here because I've exported it twice. So I can probably just take away every other one. There we go. So you'll get these. So obviously you've got your color or your albedo, you've got your transparency. They're the two most important ones for now. Then you've got an ambient occlusion, then you've got a translucency from what I've put in here. I'm going to go over the other settings at a later date when my version works, or when I'm in the school. So now we're actually ready to set these up inside Maya. It also gives you a fib file. So this is a Photoshop file. So while we've done all that work, we might as well save it. So save project as, that's going into the hair cards. Example fib, let's just double, triple, there we go. Cool. So that's us going through all there, making the hair cards. Again, that's fairly straightforward. We're not doing anything which is really kind of weird or complex. I've just seen that one of my cards is overlapping right there. I'll deal with that later on. I can't be bothered right now. Again, we're sketching it in, so stuff like that I'm not really bothered about. I can change that, fix it up. So yeah, we've made all our hair cards in there. All our characters have got, subjects have got fairly simple hair. No one's got super crazy kinky hair or anything. So it's all going to be pretty straight. Obviously some of you have got medium length to short length hair, but then you've got moustaches. The others have got long length hair, but no moustaches. But you're all going to have eyelashes and eyebrows.